You know, our God works in seasons, and He alone allows His glory to manifest at the exact point He purposed it should. This poem is a story about a young woman who comes to church, believes in the existence of God, and yet raises battles against Him. Always whining about how much life has bruised and battered her heart. Always complaining about the misfortunes life has put at her doorsteps. So one day after service, she runs to her pastor like she always does and started complaining about her list of unfortunate happenings. So the pastor looked closely at her and said, "Young lady, do you know of the thing called the glory of God? Have you ever experienced what His glory is?" And then the lady looked mutely in her pastor's eyes without saying a word. So the pastor said, of course, you don't know, do you? Sit down, relax, and allow me to tell you something about the glory of this man we both serve. Because unless you come to understand what His glory is, trying to comprehend His ways will seem almost impossible. And then the pastor started with his long speech on the glory of God. He said, glory in Hebrew means weight. So yes, the storms will rise up to you. The distress of life will shake you to the core. But if you want to see the glory of God transpire in your life, then you've got some serious waiting to do. But if you are waiting on God, you are not just waiting on God, but you are waiting in Him. And in Him is full of grace. In Him is full of abundance. In Him is full of all the goodness we think this world can offer us. When we visit the Old Testament, in Chronicles, the Bible says fire flashed down from heaven after the ark of God was brought into the temple. You know, the priest couldn't enter the temple, and the people fell face down to the ground because they couldn't afford to watch the majestic glow of God. And in Exodus on Mount Sinai, God descended on the mountain in the form of smoke, in the form of fire, and the whole place was covered on smoke. You know, no one could watch God because God was so gigantic. He was so beautiful. He was so great that their minds couldn't fathom His existence. And in John 2, after Jesus turned water into wine, the Bible says that this first miracle on Cana of Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed His glory, and His disciples believed in Him. You know, our God is all encompassing. He is who He is. He is the one that picks up a nobody and makes out a somebody. So when you are weak and tired and broken and facing what seems like a hopeless case, when you get to walls of addiction and pain and struggles and immorality and pain, and then you feel like giving up, I just came to tell you that maybe, just maybe, God does His best works and shows His glory from seemingly hopeless cases. Because when I study my Bible, I see several characters and people who walked in faith with God and yet faced hopeless cases. In fact, there isn't a single person in the Bible who walked in faith with God without facing a hopeless case. You know, Abraham was told by God to leave his family and friends for an unknown land which He would give him. A hopeless case. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into a foreign land and put in prison. A hopeless case. Moses was cornered at the banks of the Red Sea with the most powerful army in the world breathing down his neck. A hopeless case. Isaiah was made to walk naked and barefooted for 3 good years. Jeremiah was put in a question. Esther was a woman that sought favor from the prideful king. Gideon with 300 against 3,000. Daniel was put in a lion's den. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was put in a prison. The 5,000 had no food. Lazarus died. Paul was in prison. Stephen was stoned. Timothy was too young. The youngest son was so foolish. The walls of Jericho was so high, and Jesus Christ, our hope, was crucified, was disfigured and humiliated and killed. And you know, that was all. Everybody wanted to give up. Game over, book closed, game over. But I don't know much about the scriptures. But one thing that I have grown to know is that no one can place a yes when God says a no, and no one can put a comma when God plays a full stop. Because when all other options have worn out, when situations couldn't get better, when everything else have failed, get ready, because that is exactly when God shows his glory. I said, when all other things have worn out, when situations couldn't get any better, when everything else have failed, get ready, because that is exactly when God shows his glory. Because Abraham became the father of all nations. Joseph became second in command of Egypt. The Red Sea parted. Gideon won without lifting a weapon. Esther spoke and the king listened. The 5,000 had no food, and yet in the end they had abundance to eat. Timothy builds a church. The youngest son came home for a party. The walls of Jericho came trembling down, and Jesus Christ, our hope, defeated sin and death by resurrecting on the third day and giving us assurance and hope. And because of that hope we hold on to, he demonstrates to us his glory and love. He rains showers of goodness upon our lives. He walks with us through the shadows and darkness and makes everything in our life beautiful at his own pace, so that we will come to the point where we'd understand that it wasn't by our mind, that it wasn't by our strength, but it was by the glory of God. Yes, the glory of God. Thank you.